Before we begin this conversation, right, I just want to set the context. So, to all the Malayalis listening or watching this conversation, including the one I'm about to talk to, I just have like this apology as well as like a confession. Okay. So, I was born into a Malayali household, but my growing up years, my upbringing has been completely different. So, I don't even speak much Malayalam. The only Malayalam that I know was what I learned through the last few years watching Malayalam films. So when I used to go to my grandparents' house when I was small, that was the only access I had to, Kerala. Otherwise, I've been mostly living in Bombay or Chennai or even Assam because my parents used to work in the bank and I used to get transferred a lot. Malayalam is one thing. And then secondly, whatever Malayalam films I watched in the last maybe 10 years or something like that. I thought I knew a lot about Malayalam cinema, but it turns out that I really don't know much. I'm pretty much a noob. And thankfully, I'm in a stage of my life where I can say that I don't know anything. And then I can talk to people who actually know about the things that I'm curious about, which brings me to my next guest, which is Vishal Menon of Film Companion South. Just leading on from what I was saying, right? The only movie that I watched before, I think 2013 or 2014, the only Malayalam movie that I watched in the theater was this film called Kirichundan Mambaram, which was the only Malayalam film that I watched in the theater. And I based my entire opinion on Malayalam films based on just that movie because no one in my family liked it. I don't know, did the film work?
It was okay. It wasn't a flop or anything, but it was a reasonably successful movie. The songs were a big hit and all that. So you can't call it a super hit, but it was a okay kind of a movie. Yeah, everybody watched it.
Yeah. So I think when we were growing up, my dad, my mom used to tell me we should watch Malayalam films and all that because they would always watch these films on Asianet and everything. And then they'll be watching this very old, like 80s, 90s movies. And obviously, as a kid, you don't feel like watching those movies because it's like all slow and then someone is crying near the pillar in the house or something like that. And that's all. But I really didn't know the magic behind it. Then what happened was 2011, I think, I saw this poster. Okay. I had no idea because I can't read Malayalam what it was. I heard that the film is called Chapa Kurish. So I was like, okay, whatever idea I had of Malayalam film was just broken with that poster alone. But I couldn't watch it because we didn't have OTT or anything back then. And it wasn't releasing. I don't think it released in theaters at that time where I was. Then we heard about this film called Bangalore Days in I think 2013, 2014 or something like that.
13, 14, yeah.
13, 14. Then I went and watched it with my family because everyone was excited. Even Tamilians, everyone around me were talking about it. And then we're like, okay, fine. Let's see what the big deal is. It released in Satyam. So we went and watched it. And I was like, oh shit, this is something else in the sense. It's about cousins. It's about 3 cousins, which I have not seen such a story being told even in Tamil cinema or any other this thing, because mostly Indian stories are mainly about 25 plus or 30 plus couple in love, man and woman, husband, wife, maybe sometimes family story, but never of like 3 cousins. And then the way it was told and everything, it was really, really interesting. The way it was shot, the way the music was, and then I got hooked. Then I watched a film in 2015, which pretty much changed my life. It's called Premam. A lot of people say it's overrated and anything.
Is it a very small movie? Is it a very indie film? I haven't heard of that film much. Premam, is it? Okay.
Okay. Yeah. See, when I went to watch it, obviously that was a movie which didn't even have a trailer, right? It just came out of nowhere. And I think in the first 1 week, there was some kind of controversy in Kerala. That time I correctly went to visit Kerala. And I think one thing was a piracy issue. It got pirated and everything. Yeah. And then secondly, I think a lot of school kids and college kids were going to watch it, like doing like a mass bunk and going. So there was like a problem over there. So I was like, okay, fine. Maybe when I get to Chennai, I'll try to get like a DVD or something. But thankfully, it released in Chennai. It released in Satyam.
It released a week late. It released a week later. I was like there's so much hype going on about this movie in Kerala, but it didn't even release. And really shitty movies reached the exact same day in Chennai. So it was really weird why Premam didn't release in Chennai on that particular day. So
So it came out and then it released in Satyam and few theaters and all. I didn't get tickets in Satyam. I was like, what is going on? Like, it's a Malayalam film. I didn't know so many people watch Malayalam films over here. So then I got this random show, 11 o'clock show, 11 p.m. show in Anuiga Theatre in Chetpet, which is a theatre I used to go since I was like really small. And that movie, I don't even know how to explain. Like, it gave me the feeling of what Interstellar gave me. Like, not in terms of complexity or anything. It's exactly opposite in terms of story structure. There was no story, but I was like completely sucked into this world. They're just talking about, marks and girls, and there's not much really that happens in a movie. It's just this one guy, 3 stages of his life. And I was like, oh, you can make a movie like this also. And he's showing shots of food and ants and all these, that sarbat kaskas, all of these. So I was like, okay, something new is going on here. Then I was like completely hooked. And then I think I've started developing my taste in Malayalam cinema. But even now, like I said, I really don't know much. So that is what this conversation is about. This conversation is mainly about Malayalam cinema. We'll be going back and forth. We will be getting a lot of recommendations and filmmakers and everything from your side, because I looked upon this article by you, which I told you about, the most visually stunning Malayalam movies ever made. And I think I knew like 5 or 6 out of those movies. And there's so many movies that I don't know about. So we're going to be getting into that. And I have my notebook. I'm going to take notes and stuff. So we're just waiting for you to drop all the recommendations. But what do you think makes Malayalam cinema amazing from your perspective?
Yeah, before I start with that, I have to, I think maybe a couple of weeks back or something. I mean, I follow you on Twitter and you'd posted about how you watched Narodi Kate on Mubi, right? And I'm like, I know that you're a Malayali, but for a Malayali to post about Narodi Kate and saying, I discovered Narodi Kate like 2 weeks back when it came on Mubi, like even the term that Narodi Kate is a movie you discover on Mubi, I felt like, oh, this is so cute, like because Narodi Kate is like, I don't know. In terms of pop culture, it's like Sholay for us. Okay, of course, it's not as I don't think Nadu Karte was a blockbuster like Sholay, but like if you've lived in Kerala, if you're talking to Malayalis, there's probably like a Narudi Karte reference coming in at least once every 3 or 4 days. It's like the Sholay of Malayalam cinema. So I'm trying to kind of take you to movie. I'm not claiming to be an expert or anything, but this is like, okay, one basic 101 course on Malayalam cinema viewing. That's how I'm kind of thinking about this whole conversation. Now, of course, I'm not trying to get into that whole socio-political thing about how like politics has influenced Malayalam cinema and why it's a little more serious and all those kind of a thing. But generally, from all the people I've kind of spoken to about Malayalam cinema in all these years, right? There's generally been one thread about how, okay, Malayalam cinema cannot be flashy, right? It cannot afford to be, it cannot seduce you with grandness to a large extent, because Malayalis are generally especially if you talk to like film lovers in Chennai, you generally feel that they love Tamil cinema and they love English cinema. They would have seen about 5 or 6 Hindi movies. They would have seen 5 or 6 Malayalam movies and 5 or 6 Telugu movies. But basically, they are huge Nolan fans. They're huge Fincher fans. They're Tarantino fans. And then they, of course, know Tamil cinema completely. So a lot of people are like that. But in Malayalam, when it comes to Malayalam movie buffs or whatever, they of course love Malayalam cinema. They love Tamil cinema. They weirdly love Allu Arjun. They love Mahesh Babu. They have that thing going on, and they generally love Hindi cinema. Apart from English and all the downloads and foreign cinema, world cinema thing happening. But when it comes to actually bringing people to the theater, when it comes to like Malayalam cinema being a self-sufficient kind of industry, it's like you need to be inventive. You're like you need to do something different to survive. And it's all the stories. Generally, all the stories that we hear about the great directors are about those like 5-minute pitches or those 10-minute pitches, which kind of leads to a movie. It's not just about being insiders making movies eventually and all that. So it's got to be those like fascinating concepts within limited budgets that they come and they explore, and then they earn their way up through that stardom and through budgets and stuff like that. So whoever's kind of made it in Malayalam cinema, it's very, very rare that their first film itself was like a big budget star vehicle and all that. Everybody's kind of in some way or the other come up the hard way. Or in the case of this major directors who came up in the 2000s, they might have they might have kind of taken that star route to make their first or second film, but then they've reinvented themselves pretty quickly. It's like if you need to survive, you need to make something damn unique and damn way weird and strange and stuff like that. So
one thing you said, which really struck me, right? Malayalam cinema is not flashy. That's what you said, that one particular term. And then that's one thing that I've noticed in Malayalam cinema also, because compared to any other industry, if you take Hindi cinema in the 90s, it was all about catering to like an NRI audience because of, Aditya Chopra, Karan Johar, all of these things. So from that point onwards for the next 15 years or 20 years, kind of like that, it was all about taking a protagonist, setting him in New York or, wherever, London or something like that. All the movies were like that. And it was more about urban characters and, because there was like certain market that they were serving. And I think in the last 4-5 years, none of that stuff is working. Even Hindi cinema is taking a beating in terms of that. And now they're going back to what Malayalam cinema has been doing greatly, like in the sense, going back to their roots, setting it in like a particular town, like a small town or a small city or something like that. So they're doing that. Tamil cinema is a mixed bag. Like they want to go local. There are a lot of stories that are rooted. Some filmmakers do it amazingly well. Like take Ranjit or Vetrimaran or anything like that. But most other films, they are still, they're a little confused about how to make it. Like the stories are not rooted. A lot of the stories are taken from maybe Korean films or, other films from around the world and anything. And even in the making, they try to be a little bit flashy, a lot of slow motion stuff. I see none of that in Malayalam cinema. Of course, there are few examples which have like a highly stylized version or something like that. But like if you take Lijo's work, his filmmaking style is very, very different. You've not seen anything like that. The shots and all that, the grandeur, all of that is there. But the story, it's happening somewhere next in like the next road or something. Like if you take Angamali Diaries, a lot of the stuff is happening in like a small street full of like green stuff and everything. So you've grown up majorly in Kerala, right? Like for the first 14 years of your life, you were in Kerala. Yeah. So what do you think the influence of Kerala has in their films? Because while everyone is trying to tell stories from outside, there's a sense of this rooted culture that is there. And I can ask you only because you've stayed for 14 years in Kerala, and then you come to Chennai, and then you've traveled to different places. So if you were still in Kerala, I can't really ask you to articulate, right, in terms of what is it about Kerala. So what is growing up in Kerala like, and how does it make its way into popular culture?
No, of course. I'm somebody who grew up, who's like film watching years, right? Like the first time you're allowed to, like with your pocket money or whatever, the first time you're allowed to go and watch movies by yourself. That's in the 2000s, predominantly maybe like 2002, 2003 to around 2000. I mean, whatever. Like after that, you become 18, you can watch whatever you want. But that film, the independent film watching years of mine was pretty much one of the lowest periods for Malayalam cinema. Okay, so it's the opposite of what I kind of explained about this particular generation. The 2000s were the time where we're really trying to compete with Tamil cinema and Telugu cinema in terms of scale and flashiness and all that. Mohanlal had that whole superhuman series of films. It started with Arandamburan and all that, like Arandamburan, Narasimham, Ustad, and he probably did like about 6 or 7 films like that, where he's beating up 50 people, 60 people, like that those kind of mass movies. The same time, Mammootty was kind of doing these films where it would be generally comedies. Of course, it's a mass movie. But there'll generally be a comedy kind of a thing where he picks up one particular accent. Okay, it started with this blockbuster called Rajamanikyam. Of course, he acted in this movie called Thommanum Makkalam just 1 or 2 years before that. But Rajamanikyam was again one of those industry hits. Okay, the same way Narasimham in 2000 was an industry hit. So the second Narasimham came and the second Rajamanikam came, both of them started doing a lot of these similar kind of films.
Right.
So that was what the two superstars were doing in the 2000s. Of course, there are exceptions. There were directors like Blessy and all that who really did
Tanmatra
really
and all
movies.
of those. Yeah.
Tanmatra and all that. Tanmatra and Kalcha and Palanga and all that. Even in that particular period. But generally, the two stars were doing these kind of films. So the only other superstars who kind of came up in this period was Dilip and Prithviraj. So Prithviraj is kind of like, I think he kind of came too early. His sensibility is probably the 2010s sensibility, but he's working with slightly older generation of directors. So he kind of had those in-between films where it's neither mass nor really beautiful, classy films. So he kind of had hits, and of course he had a few hits and few good movies with like directors like Lal Jose and all that. But the other alternative were those Dilip films. Dilip also had one or two really good films like Misha Madhavan and all that, which is problematic now, but at that time it was a blockbuster. We didn't know better, all those kind of things. So the entire 2000s was everything that you're saying about Malayalam was the opposite. Like, I'll tell you an example. I studied in boarding school in Coimbatore. I remember my North Indian friends, they came with me to Cochin once because they can't go back to their hometown or whatever. They came to Cochin with me and they're living with me. So when we're going around in an auto to some place, they're looking at the poster of the Malayalam films and they're laughing. Because I remember there is a Mammootty film that time playing called, and the name of the film is Bus Conductor. Okay. They find it so amusing that there's a film called Bus Conductor playing, and that the guy who's acting in that is supposed to be this massive superstar and stuff like that. So they're thinking, I'm not able to really argue with them because what they're seeing is like, I can't defend myself and say, bro, this is not Malayalam cinema. Malayalam cinema was 10 years ago and 15 years ago and all that, because that was a very lean kind of a period. And that's the period when I think most of us kind of turned to Tamil cinema and we're like, dude, like, this is where the shit is at, No, it's not just like super like Rajinikanth films. It's super like Subramania Puram and all that. Like, I remember feeling jealous, It's not that I love. It's not just that I love the film, but I'm feeling like, dude, why isn't this happening in Malayalam? Because you have that ownership over it, and so that is the phase that all of us grew up in. Especially in my generation. So it's not like we grew up, we have a great taste in cinema because we grew up with great Malayalam movies or anything like that. Even in the 2000s, the movies that all of us used to love and all of us used to keep talking about were the movies of the late 80s and early 90s. The majority of the films from 95 to maybe 2011 were, of course, apart from the odd exceptions here and there, was generally disappointing. So there was this movie called Pokire Raja, for instance, a really big budget film then, where it was both Mammootty and Prithviraj in that film. And I remember it being like a big news that there is in Mammootty's entry, there are some, I don't know, 40 or 50 Innovas or something like that. Like his entry is that he makes his entry in some sports car and there are some 50 Innovas behind him or something like that.
Is there something that happened in the late 90s that made them think, okay, we have to do something different, or it was just like a natural progression of things?
This again, there are a lot of theories about this. Like some of the writers what they say is, it's like Mammootty and Mohanlal, they've become mega stars, right? They've become mega stars in their own right, and they have to play characters that are 40 plus. And they become such superstars in terms of their entire business and their entire market position and stuff like that, that it's really risky for them to do films beyond their earning capacity and do films beneath their market value. Like, for them to take a risk became extremely complicated. It's like, what can you do when you've got two major stars basically running the industry? How much room do you have for variations and unique stories and all that? So it kind of got stuck in one place. Everything kind of clicked together with great directors, writers, music directors, and actors. All that movement only kind of came together in the 2010s. Even if you ask any Malayali who grew up on Malayalam cinema, they probably have seen about 70 or 80% of all Mammootty Mohanlal movies of the 80s. they've probably seen every movie, even the super flop movies of Mammootty and Mohanlal in the in the 90s. It's only if you talk to them about 2000s and 2010s, there's actually like gaping holes in their viewing cycles. And there are movies that they haven't seen, even though it's like a Mammootty Mohanlal movie, and
So what changed in 2010, 2011? What started happening?
See, like generally, the film that's regarded as the start of this new wave is, of course, Chapo Karishas, I think, is a little later, but there's a film called Traffic, which came, and it's a new set of writers. Actors were all like slightly smaller actors. Then there's a movie called Salt and Pepper that came out, I think, that same year or the next year. It's like these are not star films, but they're making money, and it's like they're really, everything was different about those films. It's like the stories that they're trying to kind of they took us back to the kind of films that used to be made in the 80s. Like really unique kind of storylines, interesting kind of, like the editing pattern was different. For instance, in Traffic and all that, the editing was very different. So started with those two films, and then films like Chapa Kurushu and all that, when that becomes a hit, you're like, you can start 22 FK. Such a unique kind of a film, right? Of course, it's borrowed in parts from other movies and all that, but it was a unique experience. Like it was changing. You could sense that the industry was changing, and like I'll tell you, even the poster started looking different. Yeah, it's not just something very basic here and there and all that. The posters started looking different. Multiplexes started opening in Kochi. And in Trivandrum, and I think even in Calicut, maybe around that time. So there are people who wanted to spend 120, 150 rupees and watch movies in like really comfortable kind of backdrops. And the entire crowd of people who probably don't watch, who had kind of stopped watching Malayalam movies, or the kind of people who are only watching old Malayalam movies, those people started coming back to the theaters. At least even if it's in the multiplexes and stuff like that.
Was it like an influx of people from the Gulf or anything like that who went to study outside, or maybe something like that? Or who are these new voices that came up? And why did it take them so long to come? Or was it just coincidence at that point of time?
Yeah, it's pretty much coincidence. Even if you look at a lot of the people who are like really like top stars right now, they're quite like Dulquer is Mammootty's son, Fahadh is Faasil's son, Lijjhu Pellicherry is an actor's son. So there are like a lot of them. Yeah, a lot of them are insiders. They're like second generation insiders who are just making their mark on their own right now. Fahadh actually had a movie release in I think maybe early 2000. I think 2002. He acted in a movie that his father directed, but that is definitely not his film. That was somebody else making decisions for him, and he did a movie, and it didn't work. So when he came back and he kind of reinvented himself, it just became something else because he had that ecosystem. So I wouldn't call it any one particular trend. Especially generally the issue, like one of the main complaints people have about the films of 2000s was the influx of Gulf money. There's apparently a lot of NRA money, like a lot of producers with a lot of money coming into Malayalam cinema because they want to make a Mohanlal film or a Mammootty film. Those producers are willing to pay like huge salaries, but they don't know how production works. They come, they make one big flop movie, and then they go back. So it's not money in terms of what do you call it? Like, it's not like Malayalam cinema had no money or anything like that. It's just that the right kind of producers weren't there. There weren't producers who would take big risks with actors like Vineet Srinivasan and Fahadh Faasil, and that happened only in the 2010s. Of course, right now it's a time where the top 10 stars, like even their flops make 20 crores, 25 crores. It's like a damn good time for Malayalam cinema. So yeah.
What you mentioned Salt and Pepper. Okay, so I have like a slightly off thing to ask you. Okay, since you mentioned Salt and Pepper, there were more movies like that which had to do a lot with food suddenly, because and this is what I know. You have Salt and Pepper, you have Ustad Hotel, and then you have so many movies which are slightly related to food, like Angabali Diaries, where there's a lot of influence of food in it. What is this thing with Malayalam cinema and food, and like what is like the significant connection? And was this happening from before, or it started happening only after the 2010 period?
The reason why we feel all these things in these movies, right? Maybe Salt and Pepper is explicitly about food, so that's different. But
Yeah.
Angamali Diaries and Premam and all that, you feel the wood of that bench because you can you're seeing that kaskas, and it's appealing to you using another sense, right?
Yeah.
It's generally people. It's been done before, okay, especially in Marathi cinema and all that. There is a movie called Gandh or something like that, which is about smell, about it really delves into that concept of smell, and it really makes you understand that movie very differently because of that. But in Malayalam cinema, it's like to kind of set you in that place, to make you feel like you're in Alua, to make you feel like you're in Angamali. It uses food so beautifully, especially these two movies. And it's not even it's so economical. It's really, instead of telling you like one animated backstory of that place, if they just tell you like 3-4 quick cuts of the pork or something, and you completely get the history of that place.
Yeah.
It's ingenious that way. I'm not saying it's like original or they invented it or anything like that, but it's a damn economical, nice, handy way of taking us into that place.
Yeah.
So there is no, I mean, it's not unique to Malayalam cinema or anything, but especially when it comes to Salt and Pepper and all that, it just appealed to us differently, because even that opening 2 or 3 minute that introduction song, that the credit song or whatever, that was it. Like if you're hungry, you're screwed. You're completely screwed if you're starting to watch Salt and Pepper. So it is like that,
Because you said the thing about the hunger, right? Like when we went to watch Angamali Diaries, the show was supposed to start at like 9:30 or something, and we were supposed to go eat somewhere and then go to Satyam. I think it was Satyam only, and then watch it. But luckily, I don't know. Unfortunately, the restaurant was closed. Was closed at the where we wanted to eat, and then we just realized that the show was actually much earlier. We didn't see the ticket properly, so we had to rush and go. And then the movie started, and then the entire first half is just about them talking about food or making it, and then just squishing that puttu padam and all of those kappa padam, all of those things, and like it really really left just fucked to the head. And then we couldn't wait. We couldn't even sit there. We just had to wait for the interval, and that too, it's such a gripping movie. You don't really look forward to the interval, but you have to wait for the interval, so you have to get popcorn and coke. We didn't get anything before the show, so that was one experience that I had. So speaking of the 2011, now we'll get to all of the movies, the recommendations that that you should give us and everything. But who are the people, who are the main filmmakers, writers, actors who kind of started this Renaissance movement in 2010 2011 period?
Yeah, so these guys were already there. In fact, the irony is, if you talk about those list of those films, that the director who made Rajamanikam, right, Anwar Rashid, he kind of completely changed that part of the mid 2000s, because Mammootty started acting in those movies, right? Of course, I love a lot of them. I'm not saying those films are beneath me or anything like that. I love some of them. But Anwar Rashid actually has been very instrumental even in the 2010s. Like he directed Ustad Hotel. He would have produced I think he's the one of the producers or the producer of Bangalore Days. So he produced Premam. So the guy who made Rajamanikam kind of is a really big part of the guy who kind of changed Malayalam industry in the 2010s. Along with Anwar Rashid is Ashik Abu, and then of course then you have Amal Neerad. Even he had kind of made movies in the 2000s, but it felt like these guys were making the movies they originally wanted to make or something like that in the 2010s. Along with them, we had some of those like directors like Anjali Menon. She made a couple of films. Even directors like the older directors like V.K. Prakash, Ranjit, Satyanandika, they all, you felt like they were like at least doing something different. Like Ranjit Anand is a completely transformed director when it comes to his later years. Lijo, of course, with Amen or whatever. I really like. I remember going to the theater watching this movie called Nayakan, his first movie. It's a very, I mean, I don't love the movie or anything, but it was a fascinating movie. There's something interesting going on in that movie. And then when he made City of God, I'm like, dude, this guy is like gonna kill it. Like by that time, if he was a company, I would have bought stocks. You kind of knew that it had reached that point. And then with Amen, when he made Amen or whatever, then that this guy is like another level. So, but even those are like slightly later, like closer to mid 2010s. You feel like that ecosystem had already been created within, like, by 2011, 2012, 13. There was another movie called Tattathin Marayathu, which is a very nice feel good movie, but it looked very fresh. It's a very fresh looking, like, rom-com or whatever you want to call it, with new actors and beautiful music and all that. So that system got created very quickly within that 2013-14 phase. And by the time Lijo kind of hits his mark with, like, kind of, he had a massive flop. Okay, he had a legendary flop called Double Barrel, like an expensive flop. So after that, he kind of came back and kind of not reinvent, because Amen is also a great movie, but when he made Angamali Diaries, and I think around that year or the next year, Maheshandra Pradikaram kind of came, and Kammati Padam came. Rajiv had made two movies before that. Then you got this trio, right? This trio of, like, really wonderful, like, Malayalam directors who kind of who are really like bigger than Kerala, like. Even, of course, Alphonse Putran. These 4 or 5 guys are those 4 or 5 Malayalam directors who kind of took it to the next level.
Oh, those are filmmakers, right? Okay, so now imagine I'm like this North Indian guy, okay, or someone who's not from Kerala, who doesn't know about Malayalam cinema at all. I just come to know that there's something called Bangalore Days. I watch it. Then there's Premam. I watch it. So for someone like me, who doesn't know much, but who wants to get into Malayalam cinema, I would imagine that before going to the classics, correct me if I'm wrong, before going into the classics, I should start with the contemporary, contemporary movies, just like a gateway drug, kind of, right? So in that case, what are some of the movies that I have to watch? Like, give me like a Malayalam cinema starter pack of yours if you have.
I'll start with, of course, all the films that you mentioned, like Ustad Hotel, Bangalore Days, Tattathin Marayathu, Kumbalangi Nights, maybe North 24 Kadam, which is kind of slightly underrated in that sense. Thondi Mudalam Dirksakshiyam, Kammati Padam, Premam, of course, maybe Neram, because he made Neram before Premam. Of course, Joji, which just came out. Nyan Prakashan. You have to, of course, watch Helen, which is a survival thriller about a girl who gets stuck in a freezer. It's releasing in Hindi also pretty soon, but it's like a good place to start. Then there is this movie I really love called Shutter. It released in Tamil, but I think it was a flop kind of a thing. It's Shutter is basically, I don't want to reveal much, but it's basically about this family man who gets stuck in a shutter, like a shop, with another person. He shouldn't be stuck. Who shouldn't be there with him. Then, of course, the two Drishyams. Then there is a movie called Kali. Okay, Dulkar's Kali, which is a ultra stressful movie. Like I get.
It's very anxiety-inducing. Yeah.
Anxiety-inducing movie. So that's another good thriller. Bharathan is another thriller like that. It's a home invasion thriller, which is again, like crazy exciting. Ezra. It's not a thriller per se. It's like a horror movie, but just think about it. It's a Malayalam movie that deals with like Jewish ghosts and all those kind of things. Like there's a synagogue in it, and there's a portion that's set in the 40s or 50s or something like that. So it's like, even in the horror genre, it's not like a basic horror film. It's trying something unique, and there's this whole nuclear explosion angle, a nuclear waste angle, and all that. So it's even that is like a unique, like weird, quirky movie that you can watch.
Now let's get to the meat of the thing, which I really want to know about, which I have not much idea about. It's about 80s Malayalam cinema, because I have this friend called he's my colleague. His name is Najib. Each time we meet over the weekend, and then we talk about films and animated films, and he talks a lot about Malayalam films. And he was the one who told me that these films are there, like Mohanlal's older films, because Like I had watched only Kirchundan Mambalam, and these I have seen Mohanlal only in Hindi films and Tamil films before that. Like I've seen Iruvar, Company.
Yeah, Company.
Yeah. And of course I knew, okay, this guy's and I knew that, okay, everyone was saying that mom, dad, everyone like worships Mohanlal, and I knew that he's a good actor, but I really didn't know how amazing he was until I watched these movies that, Najib, or I'll call him Cheta. Okay. So until Cheta recommended, not to be, I don't mean to be racist or anything, but it's just what, it's just what everyone in office, everyone in office calls him Cheta. He says, don't call me Najib, and just call me Cheta. So he told me to watch these certain Mohanlal movies from the earlier. That's when I watched Nadudi Katte. That's when I watched few movies. We'll get to that, from Padmarajan and everything like that. Then I watched Guru, but that is much later, 1997. I think I was. So when it comes to 80s Malayalam cinema, take us to that time. Tell me about the main filmmakers from that time, why they were so good, why were they different from each other, what they stood for, and then maybe talk about some of the landmark films from the 80s period.
So let me kind of draw one map for you. Okay, generally, that whole commercial cinema thing is separate. Like the Priyadarshan Satyanandikar thing. I mean, let me just keep that separate for now. But generally, in terms of like studying or really going in depth into Malayalam cinema, there are about 5 or 6 directors that kind of take over every discussion. Okay, so there's Adoor and Aravindan who take one corner of that. Like they're like the most internationally recognized Malayalam filmmakers and stuff like that. They made those Malayalam classics, those like beautiful artistic movies that's won like dozens of national awards, and who went to Cannes and all those kind of things. So maybe one more director that kind of comes right close to them is Shaji and Karun, who made Vanaprastham. But at that time, he made movies like Piravi and Swaham and all that. So that's one section. Then in the middle is KG George, which is, I mean, right now KG George, this is, you feel like 2010s were supposed to be KG George's era, because you feel like he's thriving right now, more than he was ever spoken about earlier. If he was a cinephile kind of a director 10-15 years back, now it's like people are just devouring and discussing KG George right, left, and center. So I think he's probably made about 20 to 25 movies. In that, about at least majority of them are like textbooks, like great movies that where the politics hold up today. Like the politics of those movies are woke and respectable today. So KG George is a huge director of the 80s. Even though the 90s he didn't make anything substantial. And the other corner of this is Padmarajan and Bharathan. Like Padmarajan, like a couple of Padmarajan movies are like, dude, like I don't know how to describe how Malayalis talk about those directors. They just Tuvana Tumbigal and Namku Parkan Mundiri Topugal. These two are Padmarajan classics or whatever, which people just talk about all the time. And I also personally love those movies. In 87 or 88, when these two movies came out, in both movies, the new superstar, who's like a romantic hero, come mass hero, come everything, like Mohanlal and Mammootty, they could do anything. Like in both the films, Mohanlal is in love with a non-virgin, right? Which is like a really really crazy thing to imagine. Like I'm just giving for context. In Jagame Tandaram, which released last week, there is an explicit need to kind of tell you that Aishwarya Lakshmi is the aunt, right? You get it. Like it's not the actual mother. Of course, in Yennaiyar Indal, there are those films that do that as well. But there is a reason why you need to be told that Aishwarya Lakshmi is the aunt, and the kid has to call her Amma and stuff like that. Like you think, because Padmarajan is a writer, right? If you're a writer, if you're a novelist, you're not thinking in terms of screenplay. You're not thinking in terms of business. You're writing a fucking story, and you just want to make that into a film. So you're not like stuck with all this A center, B center nonsense, and you're just making, movies. So it's ridiculous. Like the movies, like there are movies like Arapatta Kittiya Gramathil. There is a movie that's basically about 3 guys who drank the whole night, and it's about one guy insisting that he wants to go to a brothel. That's the movie. 3 by Padmarajan. They drank the whole night, and in the morning, the one guy just has to go to a brothel. That's the story. So this is like, even now, even with all these Lijo, like even with this era of filmmaking, you feel like this is so ballsy.
Yeah.
So that's how these guys were. Those are two Padmarajan movies, and of course Bharathan movies. Bharathan movies, like the Talvaram, which is written by M.T. Vasudevan Nair. Like lot of classics of that eras again. Vaishali, like for instance, there's a movie called Vaishali, which is like, I'll tell you, bro, it's like reading an Amar Chitra Kada. Like it's like he's a painter. Like Bharathan is an artist. Originally, he was an art director who became a director. So like that first frame itself, right? It starts with like a vulture eating like a dead cow or something like that. It starts with that, and within that shot, that the film is about like a kingdom without water. Bharathan's films are like it's so visual, and it really makes you feel that place. Like Tarvaram and all that. You feel like you're in that place. You feel the heat. You feel that some crawly things of that grass kind of a thing getting stuck to your skin and scratching you when you watch those kind of movies. So these are the 5 or 6 like serious like proper directors. I don't mean any insult or anything to the other directors. I'm just talking about those big ass serious respected directors, like how you talk about Jojo Pellisheri and Dilish Pothan and all of them. Now these are the 5 main guys. Apart from that, there was the directors like C.B. Malayal, Satyanand Dikad, Priyadarshan, Hariharan, who made really beautiful movies in the 80s. Joshi, like Joshi's a name, like I don't know how, basically when I talk to my Tamil friends, Joshi's like Shankar for the last 30-40 years. Okay, he's always made the biggest films. He's the only guy who can get Mohanlal for one movie, Mammootty for the next movie, Dilip for the third movie, Prithviraj for the fourth movie. He can get anybody he wants, and he'll always work with the happening scriptwriter of that time, the happening commercial scriptwriter of that time. So it's like, how do I kind of tell you? It's like the commercial cinema had their great commercial film directors. These middle parallel arty directors were the best. Like in every way, Malayalam cinema was like kind of we were safe.
Right.
There's not a movie like every week. The flop movies are watchable. That was the kind of period between 85 and 95. Even the shittiest movies, all of us would have watched. All of us know the stories. Movies that like Mukesh is the hero, where Jagdish is the hero. Even those movies are very nice and likable and watchable. Right. So that's one period where everything was kind of working. Of course, even at that time, you can't say the industry was thriving and we were like making blockbusters every day and things like that. But it's just one time where there were really good commercial directors, really good art cinema, like serious filmmakers.
So you mentioned couple of films. I think two or three films from these different directors. Why don't we take each director and the best films by him? Like if we can start with Adoor, right? I think I've watched 3 of his films. One is like Vidayan. Then there's this film called Madhulagal I watched.
Anantaram.
That is Anantaram. Madhulagal is my like one of my all-time favorites once again, because such a beautiful looking film, that too set within like a prison. This was something I watched like late last year. But one thing I want to ask about Adoor is, for me, it holds up even now, right? What was the reception of these movies back in the late 80s and 90s? Like, were they considered like parallel cinema like that by the people who were watching it that time, or was it like any other movie? Did they do well, and was it easily accepted by people?
See, he was always celebrated. Okay, he made this movie in 73 or 74 called Swayamvaram, which everybody it's a very accessible kind of a film. Everybody should watch it, and there's a lot of good writing on Swayamvaram that's written in English, like a lot of PDFs that you can read about the film to understand how, like, why it's such a great film. So right from Swayamvaram, Adoor was like, everybody was very proud of Adoor. Everybody is like, okay, Malayalam cinema is very seriously, like Malayalam cinema is kind of traversed boundaries because of Adoor. But 90% of the people who know Adoor and read his interviews and spoke about him would have not probably never watched one of his films. That was generally the kind of, like, at that time or whatever, everybody knows Adoor, everybody takes pride in the fact that Adoor is a Malayali filmmaker, but they've maximum watched one or two films. That's how it was at that time, because I remember like uncles and like people, when you watch those movies on Sundays and all that, the second is an Adoor film, the films that will play with those hard-coded Arabic and Hindi subtitles and all that, they'll change it because they're not ready to watch that kind of a film, and this is generally a joke, like generally, like there's a joke, like if somebody, like for instance, if you ask somebody to get you something from that table and that guy takes a really long time to get you that from the table, they're like, Adoor cinema, like that. The joke is like, if you take some time, you take a little extra time to do something, they'll kind of compare you with an Adoor film and stuff like that. But if you're asking me if they commercially made money and all that, like, definitely not. Like, how do I tell you? Like Anu Iga is the smallest theater in Iga, right? Like that, there is a theater called Sangeeta in Kochi. It's Sarita, the biggest, Savita, and Sangeeta, the tiniest. These are all films. These are all Sangeeta films. So it's like they will get a release, which itself is a big deal because these guys are superstars of their area, their zone. But it's definitely not like Vanaprastham. I remember Vanaprastham is, I think, just a film before Narasimha or something like that. It released in 2000, and Mohanlal, with all his might and the fact that he got a national award and all that, nobody went to watch that movie. Nobody went to watch because they know that it's like a Shaji and Karun movie, like he's a Kathakali artist, and it just didn't matter to them. So these films, they might watch it if it comes on the TV. Then people like us, like those people who take cinema seriously, they of course would have watched it when it with CDs or some cassettes and all that. But it's not like generally like everybody's watching Adoor movies every day. It's not like that. It's not like Satyajit Ray or anything in Calcutta. It's not like everybody's watching it.
But I think personally, like whoever's watching or listening, right, don't get scared of, like how Vishal described. In the sense, of course, it is difficult to get into if you're not familiar with Malayalam cinema, if you're not a little bit open to experiencing other things. Like if you want to listen to my personal recommendation, please watch Madalagal and Vidayan especially. Madalagal is a very straightforward story. There is not, you don't have to, it is political also if you want to think a little extra about it. But you'll just enjoy it if you don't think about subtext and all of those things. Vidayan, on the other hand, it's a little intense. It has, Mammootty playing this zamindar, right? He's like a landlord kind of a thing.
Landlord.
So this film, I just suggest watch it on one side, but on the other hand, just keep in mind the things that are going on right now. In the sense with the government, I don't know. It depends also on which side you're leaning towards and everything. If you want to understand the subtext, but if you are little towards the left leaning side, you'll understand that movie much better. And then it is so amazing that he made such a movie so much before, that is still so relevant right now. So whoever wants to check out Adoor's movies, all of them are on YouTube with a pretty good print, or actually a really good print, everything with subtitles, really good subtitles. So just check them out. So yeah, Vishal, sorry, the other directors like KG George, you mentioned, Padmarajan, all of these guys.
Yeah, so KG George is like again a director who he made his first film in the 70s, and most of his films were in the 80s. And he's the kind of director who's made like a damn good film in every genre. He's made like those benchmark of those, like if you talk about a satire, like there is a film called Panjavadi Palam, where it's like it's got the, like, you feel like you're watching those cartoons, right? They're like not cartoon as in like Tom and Jerry, but cartoons as in those political cartoons. If that is made into a film using live action, that's the kind of feeling you'll get when you watch a film like called Panjavadi Palam. It's basically about the entire village getting together to build one one bridge, like one bridge, and all the characters have very quirky, interesting names, and it's such a visual film. Like for instance, like there is an introduction shot for bureaucrat, like for a government servant, and then you can't see him because he's covered with files that are completely covering him. So you can only see him peeping through the files, and you can see his hand. And the film that he, I think, made maybe one or two films before that is this film called Yavanika, okay, which is a huge, like a really, really important film in Mammootty's career. And it's as a thriller, you can watch it today and it still holds up. It's about a murder that's happened in this theater troupe, and Mammootty's like an investigating officer that comes to kind of investigate. I remember watching it when I was 5 and 6, and I'm like, dude, you have no idea like what's happening, like what's what's going to happen in that particular film, and it's like a damn fascinating movie. It's called Yavanika. It's there on Hotstar, and there is another movie called Lekayude Maranam, or Flashback. Okay, that's also around the same period. I think early 80s. In Lekayude Maranam, or Flashback, it is open knowledge, like how you know what Irvar is about. The same way, everybody knows what Lekayude Maranam is about. It's basically about Balu Mahendra's life. Like Bharat the character, he plays like a fictionalized version of Balu Mahendra. Okay, that's the male side of it. But the other side of it is about like one aspiring actress who kind of comes to Madras, to Kodambakam, to become a heroine. And the kind of sleazy people that she has to kind of deal with, how she becomes a heroine, how she falls in love with this Balu Mahendra kind of a character. And the thing is, apparently, in one of the documentaries that just came out about KG George went and borrowed film stock from Balu Mahendra while he's shooting this movie. So these guys operate at such a level, it's like they're not like regular people. They're not afraid of these kind of things being made about them. It's not like they'll create issues for you or anything like that. So it's like that. That's the kind of time that was. So these three movies are really important if you want to get into KG George. Then there's a really trippy, his first movie is a movie called Swapnadanam, which is about a random guy, like a crazy random guy who ends up in the Egmore railway station. Okay, and he just walks around. He doesn't know what's happening, and then the entire film is basically like a psychoanalysis session. He somehow reaches a mental hospital, and the entire movie plays out in his memories, like as being like that's his first movie. So KG George, like you guys, like it's like you need to get into his movies. It's crazy good. The politics is solid, and it's not inaccessible or anything like that. It's not like you might feel a little scared of Aravindan's movies and all that, because you're not really sure where at what level it's operating at. But KG George's films, like you'll get it. You'll get everything that's happening. Even if you don't really understand maybe some subtext or anything, it's still a very interesting, fascinating movie to watch.
So what were some of the other films from the 80s, not necessarily which are which are dark or progressive, but something light, like Nadodi Katte and the sequels that followed?
Okay, I'll draw you like a picture of the commercial landscape then. Okay, so Satyanarayana makes realistic movies, but they're comedies. Okay, there's an element that he's made comedies. I mean, he's made like a fantasy called Pappan Priyapata Pappan and all that, which is like a very like an outlier for even Satyanarayana. But he makes realistic comedies about middle class life. Okay, generally it's slightly problematic and complicated now because people kind of deem those films to be apolitical and all that. So that is Satyanarayana. There's Priyadarshan, who makes really what do you call it? Random movies. Okay, basically there's this movie called Boeing, which is one of the first films to kind of establish him, which is basically Mukesh and Mohanlal, they're roommates. They're living in an apartment in Chennai, I think. The film, I think it's supposed to be Chennai, and they're both dating like dozens of. I mean, they're dating many air hostesses. So they've got one air hostess coming in, and there's another air hostess going out. The whole confusion. It got remade in
Garam Masala.
Later in Garam Masala, yeah. So that's Boeing in the 80s. Priyadarshan became something else in the 90s. He became like the number one director in the 90s. But in the 80s, he used to still make all these really lovely like super fun comedies where like Kilikam and all that. It's early 90s. Kilikam is like another like hilarious movie. And then by the end of 80s, Siddiq Lal came. And Siddiq Lal kind of changed the industry. From that masala cinema, Malayalam cinema's biggest movies became comedy movies. So along with Satyanandika, Priyadarshan, and Siddiq Lal, it's like the blockbusters, those films that run for a year and out became comedies. So Siddiq Lal's first movie itself is a movie called Ramji Rao Speaking. Ramji Rao Speaking only became Hera Fairy. Priyadarshan made it Hera Fairy in the 90s. Then In Harihar Nagar, another blockbuster. Then Godfather, which is like a movie that you have to watch. It's like all-time great Malayalam movie, and it's not even like a superstar. Mukesh acted in Godfather, and I think it's the first Malayalam movie to run for like 365 days or something like that.
One more apology / confession. Mallus are probably going to kill me for this, but I've never watched Mani Chitrata till now, which Cheta again at office, he's like, he can't believe it because I've only watched Chandramukhi in Tamil, and I believe Mani Chitrata, if I'm not wrong, it's like one of the biggest landmark films of the 90s, right?
Yeah. I shouldn't forget. Like, it's like crazy that I didn't mention Faasil, but Faasil is also like a really important director of the 80s and 90s. He introduced Mohanlal. Mohanlal and Fahadh Faasil. Like, need I say more? So his eye for spotting talent is crazy. So
so Faasil is basically Fahadh Faasil's dad, right? For anyone who doesn't know. Yeah.
And Faasil, everybody knows in Tamil also because he made many hit films in Tamil as well.
Okay, like Friends and all?
His movie.
Oh,
no, Friends is Siddiq. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Oh, Kadhalak Maryade was like one of my favorite films. I used to watch it every single day at one point of time. And done with the 90s, down to 2000s, which you describe is not such a great period for Malayalam cinema. It went in a slightly more commercial route. But even within those, like we discussed, there's movies like Tanmatra and Karcha. So what are these other unmissable movies from the 2000s that not many people might know of, which people have to watch?
On the one hand, it is these really huge Mammootty Mohanlal movies, right? Like Narasimham and all that, Narasimham, Rajamanikam. And on the other side, that's when the whole Shakila wave started. 2000, like to be fair, exactly 2000, that's when that whole soft porn wave kind of started. And by the time it's about 2004 or 2005, they're talking about a period where Malayalam cinema will cease to exist. There is a term called Pradisandhi, like crisis. Like there's a crisis in the Malayalam film industry where of the 60 or 70 movies that are releasing, more than half are soft porn. That's the first time we're seeing a lot of theaters shutting down and becoming these auditoriums and all that. All that has started happening at that time, So there's a film that released in around, I think 2004 or 2005 called Udayanana Tara. Okay, which is at the peak of that crisis. It basically Mohanlal is an assistant director trying to make his first movie, and then his script gets stolen, and the guy who steals his script becomes a superstar. That's the story.
That's Srinivasan, right? I guess
Srinivasan wrote the film and is directed by this guy called Roshan Andrews, who was another really big name of the 2000s. He used to make really good movies of that era. Udayanana Taran came, and that was a really big hit, like a movie that ran for 150 days, and it's supposed to rejuvenated the industry, and it also called out all the problems in the industry. So it is a really amazing movie to kind of to have at that point, So Roshan Andrews is a very important director, and he himself made another movie. I'm not getting the name of that movie. He also made a couple of movies with Mohanlal. One is this tragic super flop called Casanova. But before that, he made really nice movies with Mohanlal, So he's also a very important director whose work you should check out. Apart from that, I mean, of course, everybody has to watch Karcha and Tanmatra. I think a lot of people have seen Tanmatra. I don't know, because Tanmatra seems to be the movie. A lot of people talk about Tanmatra. I think Vijay Sethupathi spoke about Tanmatra a few times, but the same director Blessy, who's Padmarajan's assistant, he made a really lovely movie called Karcha. That's his first film. Very understated, very like a very normal, beautiful kind of a movie about film projectionist. Like Mammootty is a film projectionist who gets this kid who like randomly finds this kid, like this kid who goes missing from Gujarat, who randomly lands up in Kerala, and he takes care of that kid. It becomes the entire family kind of tries to adopt that kid, and it's such a lovely movie. Like, so there is another Blessy movie called Brahmaram, which you need to watch because that's a damn good like Mohanlal performance. That kind of that entire movie is basically about a guy who behaves very deceptively, even though he's holding there's a revenge. He's hiding his revenge, and he's trying to behave very nicely. It's a very complicated kind of a performance. Classmates is another great movie, like a reunion. It kind of started that whole trend of like reunions, actually, like culturally, not in movies. Like because a movie like Classmates came, it's about a college reunion where people get back together, and then there is a murder in that situation.
So okay.
Yeah,
I think we have I think around at least 30 films to start with now, so you don't have to worry about thinking of more from the 2000s. So basically, if you look at the next decade, right, what are you looking forward to in terms of Malayalam cinema, in terms of movies or in terms of filmmakers, or any rising trends that you're seeing that is happening? And what is something that you think has to change? Is there any negative part that you notice in Malayalam cinema that is being either overused or overdone, or something problematic that has to change in the next 10 years?
Yeah, see, like the one main thing I need to kind of like say is Malayalam cinema, it's at a phase where there are like good movies that are coming out of the state and being watched everywhere. But nobody should think that every Malayalam cinema is good or anything like that. Okay, it's definitely not the case. It's the opposite. Like if you talk about actual ratio, like okay, of 100 films, there are probably 10 films which are like good and profitable and like really good watchable films that you can recommend. But those 10 films are, I think, almost always there. In any industry, you kind of talk about 10 movies out of 100 that I think any industry can manage. Just that these 10 movies are so good that they can work outside the state. Apart from that, like the best thing, like I think one of the best things that's happening right now is this like the new directors, like there are at least, if you make that list of those 10 films, at least 4 or 5 films will be new directors. There'll be guys who just made their first film and they've somehow managed to get good cinematography, because Kumbalangi Night is the first time filmmakers movie, and it's already one of the greatest Malayalam cinemas and all that. Like people talk about it everywhere. So Kumbalangi Night is the first time filmmakers movie. Maheshinda Pradikaram was a first time filmmakers movie. Then Uyare is a first time directors movie. So that I think is a damn good thing. Like a lot of the directors who became big names in the 2010s, when they tried to make their first movie in the 2000s, I don't think they had that ecosystem. Like they had ideas, they had style, all that they could have had, but there's no ecosystem, there's no audience for it. There's probably not enough theaters for those kind of people. Then there's no enough people in the industry who will probably get their sensibility. But right now is a phase where you can come with a script like Helen, and there is a set of people who will completely support you and help you get that movie made. So within 3 or 4 films, Anna Ben is like a star. And you're excited about what she's doing next. So there's an ecosystem like that. There's a movie like Maya Nadi that's happening. So it's like the ecosystem is good where you can get those films made very easily, which wasn't there earlier. But in the next 5 or 6 years, I hope that continues. It's like the new directors, they should keep coming, and those new directors and new writers, they should kind of keep changing the industry. Because like I mean, we're just talking about Jagame Tandaram, right? You feel like, okay, you feel like, damn, like I was so excited about Karthik Subbaraj, but are we kind of seeing him like, okay, have we had enough of him? To understand that thought that, is this guy done? So I don't want that to happen with these guys. And that's the difference, because I think in Malayalam, you make a damn good film. Your second film that you get, your second or third film is still with Fahad and Dulquer. So, and or with Nivin. So these three have constructed their stardom in such a way that they can still play whatever the fuck they want to play.
So you're saying that what is happening in the other industries like Tamil and all, that is in terms of stars and everything, that is not, thankfully, not happening in Malayalam cinema, right? There's a lot more attention to writing and more attention to the story rather than retrofitting it into the image of the stars and everything.
Yeah. Right. It's like, if you go to Fahad, like what do you have to do? Because like even if we are thinking about it as outsiders, you don't have you can't even think of, like, if somebody tells you change the script, you do, because there's nothing you can do. He's done everything. Like he does all kinds of roles. So you don't need to make him a good guy at all. Like you don't need to make him a hero at all for the film to become a hit. So you have the freedom to do whatever, right? If you want to write a psycho killer film for Fahad, you can do that. If you want to make like Dulquer has already done something like that. He's already done like a serial killer kind of a movie when he started off. So you have the freedom to do that. But the second you get dates with like Vijay, Ajit, or Rajni, you don't have that option, right?
Right.
So.
So, Vishal, we're down to the last segment, okay? So don't think this is like a rapid fire or anything, but this segment is called like 2-mark questions, which are like, you don't have to think too much. It's just, you can delve into it also if you want, but it's rather objective type. So firstly, question number 1, Team Mammootty or Team Mohanlal? I know this is not, Ajit Vijay concept is not like that in Kerala, but still, if you had to choose, and why?
It's more complicated than Ajit Vijay. As a debate,
no, in the sense that is that sense of, over here, if you like Vijay a lot, you don't just like Vijay. You have to abuse Ajit fans also, right? So is it that the same case in Kerala also, or is it?
Like, it was pretty much like that. Like growing up and all that, it was pretty much like that. If you are but I'll tell you my problem. My mom is a huge Mammootty fan, and my brother is a huge Mohanlal fan. So I didn't have a choice. Like I was always in the middle, even though we're not really like one movie watching family or anything like that. But I was really stuck in the middle, and I really cannot choose. I don't think any like lover of Malayalam cinema will be able to choose. Like if you ask me about Ajit or Vijay and all that, I'll have an answer. But the thing with Mammootty and Mohanlal, I really cannot give you an answer, because I have like my biggest, most amazing memories are of like traveling from Pune to Palakkad to watch Parsi Raja First Day First Show, which is Mammootty's film. Okay. One of the greatest like memories. The same way, another huge day of my life is the day I went and watched Sagar Ilyas Jackie, which is this cool Mohanlal film, which eventually the film was not great or anything like that, but the excitement of that movie was bigger than anything, bigger than any other film of my life. So it's like Mammootty and Mohanlal is too complicated. But if Mammootty cries, I'll cry. And if Mohanlal does mass and action and all that, I am whistling. So it's too in my blood to kind of decide.
Right. Okay. I'll allow you this diplomacy for this question alone. But the rest of the stuff is not like this or that kind. If you had to pick just one film that defines Malayalam cinema, like Malayalam cinema equal to this film, that someone new, like some foreigner is coming, you have to give him like a Malayalam, like one Malayalam film. What is that?
Right now, if I'm introducing somebody like a foreigner comes and says, okay, you're a film critic, my film will be Maheshindra Pradikaram. It's made like it speaks the language of today's Malayalam cinema, but it's also a really proper Malayalam film. So it's got the comedies like that, the characters are like that. It's Malayalam cinema. It's the two Malayalam cinemas I love into one movie.
What is one of the most underappreciated or misunderstood Malayalam films that not many people got?
So I'll say the films of this director Rohith, VS Rohith, who made Kala. Yeah. He made one movie called Adventures of Omanakuttan, which is I'm not saying it's an amazing movie. I think it's a very interesting movie. But he also made this movie called Iblis, which is a fantasy, which is a completely different pitch. Like it's a very, very strange, weird, quirky film. So I think he's very underappreciated. I think people should check out his films more.
When I say the words film poster, right? Movie poster, one poster that comes to your mind in terms of Malayalam cinema.
Big B. We are basically English thinking Malayalis, right? People who think in English, who think cool is American and Hollywood and stuff like that, right? So for people like that, the first time I thought, dude, what the fuck is this? This is so fucking cool, was Big B. There's a poster where it's like a low angle kind of a shot, and one guy is lying on the ground. You can see the entire and you can see a shot.
Cool.
And it's the first time, I'll tell you, in Malayalam, whenever these Hindi films release, like Hum Tum and Mohabbatein and all that, when they release, they'll get that glossy kind of a poster, right? Like that glossy, you can see it's a shiny kind of a poster. And each poster is supposed to be 35-40 rupees. It's expensive. Whereas Malayalam posters are like 15 rupees, 10 rupees. It's like 1/3 the price. But the first time Big P released, it was everywhere, and it's just the fucking posters are like so beautiful, bro. Like the entire city became beautiful because Big B's posters are all around, So for me, it has to be Big B. Yeah.
I think you have like a fascination for posters also, because I really do. You can see that behind. And any other posters that come to your mind?
Kamal Hassan movie right now. The name's just stuck in my. It's just stuck. It's not coming. It's a movie that came in 1990. It's Jayaram and Kamal Hassan. It's directed by T.K. Rajiv Kumar. It's produced by Navori Apachan. I know everything, but just the title of that movie is just not coming.
I'll get it for you. 1 second. Kamal Hassan. Chanakyan,
exactly. Sorry. So
right,
Chanakyan,
right.
If you can just search for Chanakyan, you will find an animated poster, like a comic book poster.
Oh.
Yeah. Bro, so when people talk about the poster of Aranya Kandam and all that, I'm thinking about this. This came at least 20 years before Aranya Kandam, no?
Oh, damn.
And
this is like Amar Chitrakatha Tinkle type of thing,
Yeah, but like action. Like, I mean, it's like more like a Japanese comic kind of a sensibility. So my life's mission is to somehow get this poster.
Like you said, there was some movie that you thought if you could buy stocks, you'll invest in this thing, right?
Yeah. Generally, I feel that about actors. Yeah.
Okay, it could be actors also. So for the next 10 years, you have to invest in stocks of different actors and everything. So this is one guy whose stock is going to go up like crazy.
I feel Sharafuddin right now, if you invest, I think his stocks will really go up. Even Tovino, I think if you ever get a chance, I think you have to keep investing in Tovino and Asif Ali. Joju, another actor. Sushin Shyam, the music director. He's also somebody I feel he's already kind of blown up. He's already got like super hit songs and all that, but still damn fascinating. There's a director called Don Palatra. I've still got a couple of movies of his that I need to finish watching, but I think he's that art cinema, the guy to kind of watch out for, the main, like Sanal Kumar Shashidharan. Like I remember I interviewed him before his first movie released in Chennai. So that time itself, I knew this guy is just gonna like blow up, and then he did, so he, of course, like a major voice in Malayalam cinema right now.
Just one particular aspect that other industries can learn from Malayalam cinema.
I think this culture of making writers stars, I think it's a good culture. So that was, I think, always there to some extent. They say that about Tamil also with like Bhagiraj and all that, but I don't really think it ever became like a subculture or anything like that.
But Bhagiraj was like writer director also, no? And then actor also. So he pretty much did the whole thing, and that's what you have to do in Tamil cinema. You have you used to have your Sujata, and then people like them.
Jayamohan, Shubha, and all
Jayamohan,
that.
Shubha,
So, but you can't really say that, like it's not like that. But in Malayalam cinema, even at every phase,
there's a director called Dennis Joseph there's a writer called Dennis Joseph who passed away maybe a month ago or something like that. So generally the assumption is you just buy a script from Dennis Joseph and come, and that movie is a super hit. And there are those kind of writers in every era. Srinivasan is a great script writer, Lohita. So you hear, in the 2000s and all that, that, okay, Lohita's script is apparently 10 lakhs or something like that. It's good, right? You're not only hearing about the Mohanlal and Mammootty's salary, you're also hearing how expensive a screenplay was and all that, So there are lots of those now Shyam Pushkaran is a superstar, right?
Yeah.
Like in his own right, because of screenwriting, he's a superstar. So that I think is a good thing to have. Tamil cinema has always had superstars and superstar directors, superstar music directors. But that superstar writers, I think, is a good culture to just kind of have. Yeah. And that will change the industry.
Okay, Vishal. So that's we're down to the end. So I think anyone who's like new to Malayalam cinema, I think we have easily around 30-50 recommendations, movies, and even like a deeper understanding of like Malayalam filmmakers to start with, right? So I think even easily 1 or 2 months is sorted in terms of Malayalam cinema at least. So thank you so much for doing this and for your time.
Yeah.
And just taking out, I think we were supposed to talk for like 1.5 hours, but it's become like two and a half hours. Yeah.
Oh shit! Yeah.
Thanks for that, man. And is there anything that you want to say, something you might have missed out earlier to whoever's watching or listening?
Yeah, don't think about this like it's coming from a place of authority and all. It's just like one excited fanboy, just like ranting about how excited he is about his movies. Just watch it. Like it's only from that space, and so it's like I don't know. I feel like because if I missed out Faasil, right? So I'm pretty sure I missed out on like some major filmmakers, major works and all that. But of course, we didn't go back to before 70s. We didn't we didn't touch any, like we didn't talk about Chemmin. We didn't do like any of the classics from before the 70s. But these are all like it's very easy. Like I'll tell you, there's a 30-35 films within 1 month. You can like really easily watch like one iconic film per director, 2 or 3 iconic film per actor, and have a decent idea of the greatness or whatever, the expanse of Malayalam cinema. At least to get the different kind of flavors from the 80s to 90s to 2000s. So I think it's like a good place to start. Don't think about it as anything more complicated than that.
Yeah.
So
because this is going to be called something like Malayalam Cinema 101, and I think this is like a really, really great place to start. If you're looking for even more, I'm going to link some of Vishal's articles and all in the description, especially the one which is like the most visually pleasing Malayalam films, right? There are a lot of films from the 60s and 70s that you've mentioned, so they can start with that. But other than that, I think this is like a great place to start with. Next time we'll do Tamil films also, and then Tamil directors also. The adolescent teenage years and your love for cinema during
the Harris years. I call them the Harris years. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Oh shit. Harris is a separate episode altogether.
Yeah.
So thanks, Vishal.
Okay. Thanks so much.
Yeah. Thanks, man.